Hello YouTubers and welcome to another episode of the vlogs. Today, another day of training and a bit of news as well, talking about probably what you can tell in the title, the Yam Squad community. So I spoke about something happening in regards to a new form or something to be more interactive with each other, and so hopefully by the time this vlog goes up tonight there is a Yam Squad subreddit of some sort, and I'll put a link in the description below. Oh yeah. But we'll discuss some more stuff. We'll get on to training for today, so let's get to it. Oh yeah. And we've made it into the boat. We're in the bow lounge with George and Charles. Oh yeah. Session in bow lounge with the lads. Next time you fuel up, because remember, food is fuel. Oh yeah! And we've made it into the crew room after the session in the 8 in the bow lounge with Mr. Rossiter. Oh yeah! Bow pair there, and of course 3-seat. I think I'm going to be doing a video at some point relating to talking about the boats themselves, like what the seats are, what it looks like inside the boats, etc. Just a little bit of information. So that's one of the ideas about what might be coming up in some of the less vloggy videos. But let me know in the comments below if you have any other ideas. And also I'm going to make a part of the subreddit on with Yam Squad subreddit to have a section, or maybe once a week, where the ideas section. But that's another story, because first things first, we have to fuel up. Oh yeah! Now we're finished with fueling up, and it's time to get on the water and do some pieces in prep for the Oxford fixture this weekend. So let's get to it, oh yeah! made it back into the crew room after some lovely piecing in the 8. Richard was in the other boat, probably saw him, he was in 6. Oh, behind Edward. Behind Edward. In the other 8, we have the 360 cam on, so we could see both boats yamming on it down the course at Henley to prep for the weekend against Oxford University. So we raced Cambridge University a while back, had a little bit more time in 8, and then we're now going to go race Oxford for their prep for the boat race against each other. So it's always good to have somebody to compare against, and then we can kind of, other crews have raced Oxford and Cambridge, and then we'll have raced Cambridge and Oxford, so you can kind of slightly gauge how we might be doing, improving, getting better, getting slower, getting faster. But now, as always, we've got some delicious food to fuel up on, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about the Yam Squad subreddit and maybe something else. Oh yeah! And we've made it outside of the club for another day. We've got the trailer here, we're all packed up and ready to go for the Oxford fixture on Saturday, which unfortunately means that we'll be in smaller boats tomorrow, and then when we get to the Tideway on Saturday, we get back in this baby and you get to race against Oxford University. Like I said, it's awesome to have the opportunity to race, especially some high quality athletes at the likes of Cambridge or Oxford University. But today has been all about 8 rowing and prepping for the racing. And for me, what is 8 prep? What is good about just rowing prep? The differences between rowing and prep in the boat versus rowing and prep on an erg for an erg test like a 2K. So maybe the distances and the workouts themselves are very, very similar, but the actual, like, rowing in an erg is very, very different. I'm under the opinion of you have a technique on the erg and you have a technique on the water. Sometimes they can be very similar, but for some people they can be very different. Let me know in the comments below, for those of you who have been able to row and row on the erg, if you have like a different sort of technique on both, or whether you think they should both be the same. The reason I say that I think they're both different, or at least should be different, is because there's a lot about rowing in a boat that you can't really do on an erg and vice versa. And it starts with the moving of the water underneath you, and obviously with the erg you're very still. So on the erg you can get away with a little bit of movement here and there, but you are going straight up and down, and the oar handle at least is right in the middle in front of you on an erg, whereas in a sculling boat or a rowing boat you have to pivot or at least move outside the boat, which makes techniques very different. Although you still have the legs, back arms, arms back legs, there's still many different things in between that is different on the erg versus the water. But on to prep. So how do you prep for a rowing piece, a rowing race, like a fixture coming up this weekend? Well, for me, I'm making sure I'm fueled correctly and I'm recovered correctly. So a lot of things apply similarly to 2K tests or rowing on the machine tests versus on the water, but also it's fine-tuning the muscles to understand what's going to happen. So on the erg, you can almost, you know what's going to happen on the erg. You can narrow it down to a very fine margin and say, I feel this way, I'm going to do this score or attempt this score. Where as you go onto the water, and there's so many different variables that you have to take into account, that you can't really depend on, okay, I'm going to hit this split and then we're going to just hold that split, because some days it might be a headwind and it'll slow you down, some days it might be a tailwind and it'll speed you up. So you can't really go by split, you kind of have to go by feeling. And then on the day when you're doing the pre-paddle or the paddle before the race, you're doing some bursts, and then that's when you can kind of decide on the split that you want to hit and hold. But it's different to the erg where it's less certain. So we did the pieces today to sort of gauge the effort levels that we want to push out during the longer race on Saturday. So since it was a 750, it's shorter, it's going to feel relatively easier. So it's not flat out, but you're going to say, okay, you finish the piece, you're breathy, you're breathing hard, but you're hoping to think to yourself, could probably manage that for the whole whatever distance you're doing on the water. So it could be a 2K, so you want to do 500s at 2K pace, or we're doing a roughly 10-minute pace, 10-minute race on Saturday, so we're doing a 750, so we're trying to gauge what we can hold for 10 minutes. But I think that's probably the biggest thing, is gauging your effort, and then we come into getting the muscles tuned and feeling right, because on the erg you can do high rate stuff and you can get used to rowing on the erg and doing high rate and race pieces, getting the lactic acid in the legs, but it's different on the water, so you have to fine tune yourself for that. So doing a lot of pieces and prep on the water for water racing does really help, but you can cross them over, so you can do prep on the erg to prep for the water and prep on the water to prep on the erg, but it can be really individual. But that will be it for today. Going to go home and do some recovery for the prep. Hopefully in the description will be a link to the Yam Squad subreddit. I'm going to just develop that over the next few weeks. If you want to help me with that, if you're maybe a moderator, just let me know in my Instagram DMs at Buchan Cameron, just to see if we can get the sort of communication going as a community and not just me putting stuff on there. Getting everyone maybe a couple of posts that are weekly so people can join in there and whatnot. So that will be it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and as always, Yam Squad, remember to subscribe if you haven't already, hit that like button, and have a good one.